Each school year, we embark on a new and exciting journey with our students, a voyage with a destination in mind. That on that final day of school, we cross that finish line with each and every student being in a better place than when they came to us. That we do whatever it takes to inspire them to become the best versions of themselves by teaching them to respond to obstacles and learn and grow from them. So how do we get there? How do we ensure that within the short period of one school year, that each and every one of our students leaves us better than when they came? The answer is engaged learning. My journey in 2015 seemed more like traveling on an inner tube through a hurricane. And although it was my roughest school year yet, it redefined my views on what engaged learning actually is. 2 days before the start of school in 2015, I anxiously awaited the start of my journey with my new students. But as excited as I was to meet my students, I was not as excited for my summer to end and for my early wake-ups to begin. So on my last day of freedom, I put my phone on silent, shoved it in a drawer, and slammed it shut just for good measure. Despite my phone being locked away in that drawer, I jolted awake early the next morning by a feeling that something just wasn't right. I checked my phone and saw that I had received a message that my mother was in trouble. I rushed to the hospital and was taken to her room, but what I saw was not my mother at all. My strong, independent mother lay there on the hospital bed, unable to move, paralyzed, and unable to speak or communicate. She was having a stroke. I said goodbye to my mother for what I thought could be the last time, as the doctors wheeled her away. I sat for hours, anxiously awaiting her fate, and after what seemed like forever, the doctor approached me, relief written on his face. He explained that although it may seem unlucky for someone who is 55 to experience a stroke like this, in the end, she is one of the lucky ones, as this type of stroke kills 9 out of every 10 people. Although her life was spared that day, I knew the journey ahead for her would be a tough one. She went from living alone, working full-time, to being unable to walk, talk, or do anything independently. Her brain had regressed from that of a 55-year-old intelligent woman to that of a young child. Everything that she learned in 55 years of her life had disappeared in the blink of an eye. And as I began school that year of 2015, a couple days later, I not only had one learning journey to be part of, I had 2. It is through her journey of learning to do life all over again that I was able to change the course of my students' journey that school year and engage them in the learning process. At times, learning became discouraging for my mom. No matter how hard she tried, things such as dialing a phone, walking, or saying a name did not come easily to her. She was putting extreme amounts of effort into her recovery with very little results. There were many times she felt like quitting and just accepting her fate. Those around her, however, would not let that happen. The driving force of her continuing to stay engaged with learning these skills once again were the relationships that she developed with those around her. Whether it be a physical therapist, nurse, friend, or family member, they made sure she knew they cared about her and that they believed in her. She was willing to take that extra risk, work for that extra hour, and try even when it hurt because she knew people cared for her and believed in her. As I saw this from outside of my mother's journey, I realized just what a difference that this could make in my classroom. I always knew relationships mattered, but I didn't see the true impact till I saw it firsthand with her. All of our students get discouraged at times, and they are all trying new things that may not be easy at first. A positive relationship with a teacher can influence their decision to keep on going, take risks, and never give up. I found that when I made the conscious effort to truly invest my time into relationships with my students, they were willing to do so much more for me. They were willing to attempt challenging tasks and try, even when it got tough, because they put their trust in me. If we as teachers are willing to go the extra mile to build those relationships with our students, the students are going to be willing to go an extra mile for us as well as themselves. Once my mom had established relationships with those invested in her recovery, she was willing to put in the work, but she also wanted to know why she was putting in the work. Where was all this work going to bring her? For her to continue to engage in the learning process, she needed answers. Setting goals, both long-term and short-term, engaged her in day-to-day activities because she had a clear understanding of what the end goal was. And in her case, it was independence. With each class she took, each therapy session she participated in, she knew the purpose and how it brought her one step closer to autonomy. Her success with goal setting helped me understand for my students to engage in the learning process, they too needed to know what they were doing and why they were doing it. I made sure that each learning task started off with a goal, that they knew the importance of the day's lesson and how it would help them in the long run. Because of this, I found students' retention of skills increased. Students were able to articulate their learning and were cognizant of their areas of strength and weakness. Students began asking meaningful questions and taking control of their learning because they truly had a big picture understanding of what they were learning and why they were learning it. Early on in my mom's recovery, I realized that telling her how to do something was not an effective way for her to engage in learning these skills once again. I spent days upon days and hours upon hours explaining how to do simple tasks such as holding a pencil or using a fork. But I soon realized that no matter how many times I told her the correct way to do something, it wasn't sticking, and most importantly, she wasn't learning. Things that I would teach her were simply retained in her mind and then forgotten, or regurgitated but not applied. It was not until I took a step back and let her figure things out on her own that she was able to truly engage in learning them. She turned into her own teacher, and I was just there to help steer her in the right direction. I realized that my teaching in the classroom mirrored my teaching at home. The direct instruction I was giving my students was retained for a short period of time and then forgotten, just as was happening at home. I decided to start setting up my classroom to be as inquiry-based as possible. I began having students figuring learning tasks out on their own. I gave up the role of being center stage, but took on the guide on the side. Students began actively working to solve goal-related problems. They began participating, really participating, and were excited about learning. I saw students retaining what they had learned and applying it to new situations. And most of all, I saw students' mindset shift. They were no longer afraid to make mistakes and fail. They began to see their failures as learning opportunities. Just a simple change in my role truly created an engaged learning environment. My mom joined several therapy groups where she worked with peers who had a wide range of abilities. They worked together to try to better themselves as well as the group as a whole. Although their individual recovery levels were different, they would work on tasks, encourage one another, and achieve a group goal. Everyone was expected to contribute, and failure was not an option. From this, I realized that gone are the days where students sit in rows at silent attention while the teacher is talking. Engaged learning is a collaborative process, and students can offer each other things that I, even as their teacher, cannot. By putting students into collaborative work groups, I was amazed at the conversations that I was hearing. Students were teaching one another, encouraging one another, and holding each other accountable. Not only did I see academic growth, but I saw social and emotional growth as well. My students truly transformed the classroom into a community where students were engaged in learning and invested in one another. Though my mom's journey to recovery is still not over, this leg of her journey has inspired my own. When you begin your voyage this school year, I encourage you to remember that engaged learning can be your compass to steer your students to their final destination. And as the craziness of the school year starts to take off, try to remember these 4 simple steps to transform learning in your classroom. Build relationships, set goals, be the guide on the side, and foster collaboration. By doing this, we can ensure all of our students leave us better than when they came. Thank you.